So we are recording, guys. Remember that. It's being live streamed and recorded for YouTube. So let me see, how many do we have here right now? Joe, Steve, Tom, John.
Yeah, we have a quorum.
And myself. So we have a quorum. Right, 5 is our minimum.
Yep.
So why don't we entertain a motion to open the meeting?
Motion to open.
Second.
All right, and just for posterity, when we do any motions or any votes, if we can just do it as a roll call. Just for people, sometimes these names are different, and I know that last time they wanted us to do that.
Mhm.
So that was motioned by,
I get the minutes, Derek. Don't worry about it.
you got them? Okay, great.
Mr.
Derek,
Chairman.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep. Yes, sir.
can we skip the minutes tonight and just get right into things?
Yes, I think that's not a bad idea. You need a motion to pass it over.
Motion to
vote.
pass over minutes.
From Joe Reese is a
I'll-
motion.
EDO's a second.
Peter second, all in favor? Roll call?
Aye.
Aye, Tom Reagan.
Steve
Joe-
O'Donnell.
Aye, Joe Reese.
Aye, John Hennessy.
Aye. Aye, PDO.
Excellent. And myself, Derek Yule.
Mr. Chairman,
So
can we take things out of order? Can we go to open space first? Because I think we're all up to date on that and it might move quicker.
yeah, let me, I'm pulling up right now. Hold on a second. I'm just pulling up the rest of my agenda on my phone now that everything was screwed up with my computer. It was priceless.
Let me do this for you.
All right, so we got it. So we wanted to jump
Motion.
forward to
Motion to
the open
switch,
space.
yes, motion to switch 2 and 3 to be 3 and 2.
And be done with it right away. That Noel, I think that this is probably prudent for you. It'll give you a lot more time to explain your project. So we'll entertain a motion to swap item 2 and 3 on the current agenda and take open spaces. It should be pretty quick.
Motion.
Motion by Joe Reese,
Second.
second by Tom Reagan. All in favor, roll call.
Aye, Tom Reagan.
Okay.
Aye, Joe Reese.
Aye, PDO.
Aye, John Hennessy.
Aye, Steve O'Donnell.
All right. And myself, Derek Yule as well, yes. So that's a vote. All right, so the open spaces land purchase. If Donald, do you want to just give us the quick breakdown of exactly what you guys are going to need? You're on mute, Donald.
Am I loud and clear now?
You're good.
Yep.
Can hear you.
Thank you. So we're required, as you know, we're seeking a land grant for $400,000, but we're required to have passed the whole budget at town meeting. And the whole budget to acquire the McCarthy Farm is $900,000. So to break it down, we're asking CPA to give us from the open space reserve $47,000, and from the undesignated balance $500,000. From free cash, we'll get $250,000. This will be in the article to make $500,000 that we need for the matching funds to the $900,000. And this is all contingent on getting the grant. Once we get the grant for $400,000, we'll subtract that.
Okay,
Mike-
so
Mike Bromberg is also-
now,
By the way, the lead on this, and he can address it also. I would.
all right, now with this, the absolute total, because Tom, you have the current figure of what we have on available cash?
Yes. I think it's 1.3 million overall.
Well, that was actually with the 1.3, wasn't that before withdrawals for the library and so forth?
Well, I mean,
We pretty much expended everything last year, so we had this year's incoming, which should have been around 450 and change, I believe.
that sounds about right.
All right, so, because I just want to make sure that we don't, it might be actually pretty good. Noel, what was the total? Because I don't have without my regular info, I don't have the figure. What was the figure that you were applying for?
So it's 100,000. And that part of the reason why it's a little bit higher was because I think initially in talks with the town administrator, there was like an $85,000 amount that was previously allocated to some sort of like rental assistance. And because of the various programs, that's not needed anymore. So the idea was to sort of swap that out and then add an additional, it might be 80,000. So it would be an additional 20.
All right. Well, I just want to make sure that we do have available this year enough to cover what we'd actually put forth if we were to go forward with both projects.
And one other
all
thing,
right,
Derek,
so-
sorry to interrupt, but if there is some flexibility with the pay in of it, if some portion needed to come from next year, that would probably be possible too. So if you found you
Okay.
didn't have it from the 2021, I think we could use some, a balance from 2022 if that works better.
All right. Yeah, I think with these two projects here, I think we should probably be okay with that this year, falling under what our cap for available funds are. So for the open space purchase there, you're looking at roughly 250.
Yes, but well, in 250 exactly. So it's $45,000 from the open reserve, the CPA open space reserve, and $205,000 from the undesignated fund balance.
Okay, and now you need this prior to getting your grant?
We need to put up all the money and the grants of reimbursement.
Okay,
And if we don't get
all right, so,
a contingency that,
yeah, just,
everything goes back in place, I guess. So it's, and I believe you'll have to have an article for this for the upcoming town meeting.
And I have that.
yep, and I know that we already have that article, yeah. Stephen, you have the article?
Coming up.
Excellent.
You see that all right? So this was written by the town attorneys. And it lays out really the entirety of what's required for the grant and what's being asked of our committee for funds.
All right. And I don't think that should be a problem.
I would just
Um,
check with the.
Do we want
administrator.
to, all right, so this is the one that we just got sent through. I'm just moving in a little bit here.
I haven't seen this, so.
Did everybody on the committee get a chance to read this at all? Or?
I don't think so. Do you want me to go ahead and read it out loud for those of you guys on the phone and stuff?
Yes, please.
All right.
That would be fantastic, Steve.
So, article number to be determined. Will the town vote to appropriate and authorize the treasurer with the approval of the Board of Selectmen by raising taxation, transferring from available funds, including without limitation community preservation funds, in accordance with Chapter 44B, and/or borrow the sum of $930,000 as authorized under the Community Preservation Program pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 7, Chapter 44B, Section 11, and/or any other enabling authority for the purpose of purchasing for conservation and passive recreation purposes by eminent domain or negotiated purchase or otherwise a certain property together with buildings thereon known as and numbered as 0 Beach Street, Rockland, Plymouth County, Massachusetts, the property known as the McCarthy Farm property, consisting of approximately 36.30 acres and described in a deed recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds in Book 46427, page 233, and shown as parcel 82-16-0 on the town of Rockland's assessors map. That said land to be conveyed to the town under the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40 and Section 8C, as it may hereafter be amended and other Massachusetts statutes relating to conservation to be managed and controlled by the Rockland Conservation Commission. And further, that Rockland Conservation Commission and/or Board of Selectmen be authorized and directed to grant perpetual restriction in said parcels of land meeting the requirements of Chapter 44B, Section 12, and Chapter 184, Sections 31 through 33, as required under Section 12 of the Community Preservation Act. A little feedback on there. Thank you. And further, the Board of Selectmen be authorized to file on behalf of the town of Rockland any and all applications deemed necessary for grants and/or reimbursement from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts deemed necessary under Chapter 132A, Section 11, including without limitation the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Division of Conservation Services, EEA, DCS, Local Acquisitions for Natural Diversity, Land Grant Program, and/or any others in any way connected with the scope of this article and/or to seek, receive, and accept grants, donations, or reimbursements for this purpose, to execute contracts and amendments thereto in order to carry out terms, purposes, and conditions of EEA DCS Land Grant Program, and/or any others in any way connected with the scope of this article as a contingency of the acquisition of said property, and the Rockland Conservation Commission be authorized to enter into all agreements and execute any and all instruments as may be necessary on behalf of the town to effect said purchase and/or to carry out the terms, purposes, and conditions of the EEA DCS Land Grant Program, or take any other action thereon. This was definitely written by an attorney.
That one sentence.
Is it all one sentence? That's interesting.
Oh, the way I read it, it sounded like it, huh?
The article is written, it only, it comes up with 930,000 and it mentions community preservation funds. Does it need to say anything in the article about, half of it supposed to be coming from a grant?
This is the first time I've seen this article. My guess is that the town administrator has presented it with consulting with the land attorney. So I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I'd agree.
I'm sure
I agree that, it looks a little strange. Looks a little like it's missing some information. Peter, go ahead.
If the grant falls through, does this lock CPC into?
No, it does not.
930?
As far as I know, it doesn't. And I can say that you see it's 930,000. Mr. Lapp talked about when I go to capital planning that to ask for them to use another 30,000 for contingencies like lawyers' fees, surveying and stuff, some of which, by the way, through the grant will be reimbursed. I don't think all of it would, lawyers' fees, they say are not reimbursed, but surveys are reimbursable. So that's just, they take care of ends that may be expenses that may be associated with the process.
I think that
So-
with the way that it was explained to me prior was having this, as an article written so that we can apply for the grant. If they don't get that grant, it dumps the 250 that we would kick in back into the general fund, well, 45 back into the open space, and then the remaining 205 back into the general fund. So basically it's all reward and no risk, from our standpoint, as it sounds. I think with the wording that's in there, basically being to borrow without limitation community preservations funds, transferring from available funds, that's the free cash and so forth. So, from a standpoint of our committee, there's really no risk to it because we'd have to approve it anyways. Then it had to be approved through town meeting. And it would have to meet this goal. And we know that the grant is one portion of this. If I'm reading it correctly.
Yeah. I'm wondering, do we need a separate article to specify the 250 from CPA, or is this sufficient? We just need essentially our board's approval on the 250.
That's a question for Mr. Knapp, I think.
Yep. And I think that that's something that we can approve it tonight, just to keep this ball moving and get on to the next thing. I think we could approve the 45 and the 205, or at least vote on it, whether or not you guys want to approve it. And then moving forward, write the article based on those numbers, 45 and 205. Or if there is even one necessary. Doug didn't seem to think there would be.
Can we do, Mr. Chairman, can we do a contingency in our motion
On what?
that the article is, that it's only going to be 250 from CPC?
Well, it would basically be, that's all would be approving. The motion that will be taken down in the minutes would be to approve 45 and 205, and that's it. So there wouldn't be anything approved beyond that anyways. So I don't think we have to put any kind of a clause or a rider on it.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
I-
sure, this is Peter.
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sure if this was written by the town administrator, it'll all be cleared through the town clerks as well before it even goes to town meeting, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about, we definitely don't need a contingency because like you just said, Derek, it's right there.
Yeah. Yep, I think that we could then go forward and why don't we entertain an article for, a motion to take a vote, base it on whoever does the motion, base it on 45 from open space account and 205 from the reserve. Or 250 total.
Uh, 45 from the open space, and what was the other number?
205.
The general.
205, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll give this a go. I'm so moved to allocate $45,000 from open space CPC funds and $205,000 from CPC undesignated funds for a total of $250,000 for the Rockland Open Space Committee project regarding the purchase of Zero Beach Street, also known as McCarthy Farm.
I'll second
Second.
that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call vote?
Joe Reese, aye.
Tom Reagan, aye.
DUI.
John Hennessy, aye.
And myself, yes. Derek Yule.
Steve O'Donnell, aye.
All right, so unanimous approval and we can get that off to Doug right away, knowing the 250 was approved by us. And we'll go from there, see what he has us do next.
All right, I'd like to make a second motion regarding this article on the screen.
Yep.
Can I make
Motion.
one
Go ahead.
more comment about the article as written?
Mhm.
I presume that in town meeting, the article would be read aloud like Steve just did.
Mhm.
If I'm a layperson, just being at the meeting and I listen to the second line where it says by raising by taxation,
Mhm.
might have some people go, whoa, you're gonna raise my taxes for this? So I don't even know why you need the by raising by taxation part in there if it's gonna be coming from a grant and the CPC.
The CPC money is actually raised.
I know,
by
you
taxation.
know it and I know it. I'm just in the wording, you know
Yeah.
how,
Yeah, the wording's tough, and I really think just the breaking down of that 930 should be shown. I say totally reading this as a person, any person, they're gonna read taxation and they're gonna read 930 and not really get the gist of it, I would think.
All right, we can
I mean,
request
that
that.
should be addressed to Doug. I'm just throwing that out there
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
discussion.
We can request that some of the wording be a little more favorable.
Yeah, based on previous town meetings that I've gone to, there's like certain ways they have to open these articles, and they have to write it that way
Oh, so that's
because of where the money comes from. Like CPC funds is by taxation. The grant money from the state of Massachusetts is raised through taxation.
I understand.
So the moderator had actually gone through that, I think 2 years ago at a town meeting, and said, we're going to talk about these things. We're going to say via taxation, this is what it means. And he kind of went through all the definitions when it says, I don't have one in front of me to be able to go through all the different ways that they can write it. But you're right. It is kind of, for the layperson, they're going to say, what do you mean? You're going to raise taxes on us to do this? When in the fact is they've already taxed this money to be able to fund it.
Okay.
But I do like the idea of breaking down the funds within the article so that it's a bit more clear where it's coming from.
I
Yeah, I
understand
mean-
that. We'll put that in for a discussion with Doug, I think, with the email that we'll send to him, letting him know that this was approved.
Is there a way that we can vote on something so it's more firm and we don't have to have a special meeting to do that?
As far as like exactly what it is, 250, like the wording of it, you're talking about, Joe?
Yes, the breakdown like John and Tom is discussing, some type of breakdown, maybe we can send that in with this.
Well, generally, I mean, the articles that we write, each year that we've gotten projects and I'll write an article and put it through to the Board of Selectmen, and then the attorney takes it, rewords it, and sends it back. So if this already came from the attorney, I think we're just beating a dead horse.
So we can do it in our article that we're gonna present at town floor. 250,000 is going to be used for this property, 45,205. That way it's explained, or town moderator and Doug might have to get up and speak on this and yourself. or
I'm
one of
not
us.
so sure. I'm not so sure we're actually putting in an article.
All right,
From
this
what
may
I
cover it.
gathered, this covers it. We will not have an article for this. It'll be this one article that's already posted here will be what hits town floor at town meeting. We
For the whole
won't
thing,
put in
huh?
a second, we won't put a second article in for that. Basically, this is covering everything, saying to the town, this is what we want to do. Some of the money's coming from here, some of it's coming from there. We're applying for a grant. Do you allow us to do this? Instead of, if we put out there 250 for the land purchase, they approve that and then shoot down the very next article that's 250 from free cash. Well, then it was pointless. So they put it into pass one article, pass one thing, a lot less confusing in the long run. So,
All right. Move the question.
And it's more above board that way.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
thank you very much. But there's two things. Doug has already said that he's going to do some explanation when this article comes up. The Open Space Committee plans to have a public session where people can call in and televised and so forth, explaining the whole concept of getting this land and preparing for town meeting.
okay,
And the last thing is sort of a footnote. I checked this, it is one sentence. There's only one period. There's decimal points and a lot of punctuation, but there's only one period.
yep. That's
Noted.
what most do.
Read it in one breath.
Yep.
I tried.
All right, thank you, Donald.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yep, good luck at town meeting.
Thank you.
All right, so the
Thanks,
next
guys.
thing,
Appreciate it.
I
no
don't.
problem, Mike, thank you. Next thing on the list here, let's hear from Noel, the Copley Gardens project.
Okay, can I share my screen? I see that Steve's is
Yep.
still,
Let me stop and see if you have the ability to share. Sometimes they restrict it.
okay, nope, it looks fine. Okay, and everyone can hear me. I tend to have trouble with my laptop, but it looks like it's good, so.
Here,
Okay, sorry, that's good. I can't even tell you how many times I get questioned on it, but as long as you can hear me. So by now I did submit an application for Copley, so hopefully everyone has at least an electronic copy, if not a hard copy of that. I'm just gonna go through the background on NeighborWorks, which is the company that or the organization I work for. And then give you a little background on Copley and run through our requests for the CPA funding. So I'm Noelle Humphreys. I'm the Associate Real Estate Development Director at NeighborWorks. NeighborWorks Housing Solutions is based in Quincy. We have actually 4 locations on the South Shore, and we originated in Quincy about 40 years ago doing smaller projects like veterans housing. We're nonprofit, so veterans housing, disabled and so forth. And then over time sort of grew into some bigger projects. Back in 2019, we merged with Housing Solutions. So we used to be known as NeighborWorks Southern Mass, and then Housing Solutions, which is a group based out of Kingston, who primarily handles rental assistance, like like project-based Section 8 vouchers and so forth for landlords on the South Shore. We merged with Housing Solutions in 2019 to become NeighborWorks Housing Solutions. We do affordable housing and mixed income housing development. We do first-time home ownership, education and lending resources, as well as the rental assistance piece that I just mentioned. When we merged with Housing Solutions, we took on their portfolio. And as part of their portfolio, they had Copley Gardens. So Copley Gardens was purchased by them, I want to say in like 96. So long-term owners of the property. At that time, they did a recapitalization of the property. It was built in 1970 and hadn't been renovated since then. So they did a full recapitalization, refinance, and then did a whole bunch of physical improvements at that time. But since then, nothing has been done. I mean, outside of typical maintenance, they replaced the roofs a few years ago, but they really haven't had funds to go in and do like a full-blown rehab. So as part of the development team, I started looking at this about 1.5 years ago to see, since it was coming up on its mortgage, whether or not we could refinance and then utilize income from or equity from the sale of tax credits, low income tax credits, which is what they used initially back in the 90s. And as well as a few other sources, and then redevelop it and renovate it so that we could shore it up for the long term. So that's sort of where this all originated. And we started looking, I would say it was early last year, we started looking at the buildings to see what the needs were, what the capital needs were. We hired someone to look at that as well as our team. I brought on the architectural team, which is architect that is very familiar with this type of property, as they do historic rehabs, new construction, existing property renovations, as well as Delbrook Construction, which is based in Quincy, who also has a lot of experience in typical or similar buildings. And we've developed a scope that we've now come down to, like I said, shore up the building. And we've got all the sources committed at this point outside of the CPA. But we have soft funds in the amount of 300,000 from the state for accessibility conversions that we're doing. We have low income tax credit equity for the affordable units, which is, in fact, actually, I'm going to just go to the budget right now so everyone can see, but that's about $4 million in tax credit equity. We have, bear with me. Okay, so you can, if everyone can see that at the top, that's the list of sources. So we've got a permanent first mortgage, which is coming from Boston Private Bank, which has now just been bought by Silicon Valley Bank. We have the tax credit equity, which is about $4.4 million. We have an existing home loan on the project that we're going to resubordinate as part of this redevelopment. And then we're utilizing some of the property income and its reserves as part of it as well. And then you can see the bottom line is CDAC AAHG. So that is affordable accessible housing grant. And it's for 3 of the units that we're doing full accessibility conversions. So we're required per code to update 5 of the units or 5% to meet all the accessibility requirements of Section 504. So 3 of those units we've applied for funding and received that funding from CDAC for. So then the remaining ask is the Town Rockland CPA funds, which is what brings us here for $100,000, which will help us close the gap. We've had to do a little bit of value engineering on the scope, but nothing to any of the major systems. We've maintained all of the sort of, bigger building systems that need to get done, as well as some in-unit rehab work that we're doing. But with rising construction costs, we've been working with Delbrook for a long time, so we're able to lock in, but the longer we wait, the worse that's getting, because as I think most of you probably know, the construction costs have gone up significantly in the last year or so. But right now they've bought out subs, and this is kind of like the final piece that would really contribute to just help us get to where we need to be. In terms of the scope of work, I'm just going to back up for a second so you can see. Actually, I'm going to click on another. So for those of you, if you're familiar with the property, it's located at 105 Market. So it's right across from the 7-Eleven, next to the Walgreens, and then right next to the Rockland Plaza. You can see on this, so there's building 1, which is at the main entrance. And then that is actually going to be the location of a new management office. Right now, the management office is in building 3, but it's not accessible. It's got stairs that go up to it. So what we're proposing to, or what we're planning to do, is actually move the management office from building 3 over to building 1 to make a much larger space and an accessible office. We're replacing all of the siding. We're doing masonry repointing throughout the property, all new fire alarm protection, common areas. So there are common areas. There's not a whole lot of amenities on the site or room in the buildings. There's laundry rooms, mechanical rooms, and then just your common area hallways. So what we're doing in the hallways is we're removing and replacing all of the railings to make sure that they're safe. And so we're bringing them up in height. We're putting in all new carpet, new paint. We have new fire doors. We're also, and we met with the fire department, so we listened to their concerns or things that they wanted to see to improve things. So we're also at the ends of 2 of the buildings that are the longer buildings, 2 and 3. We're adding partitions because they have a very unique configuration where the end stairwells are. So we're adding in fire doors, and we're basically adding walls so that there's a contained location for smoke if people, it's within the hallway if people run out and have to exit the buildings. We're doing all new windows, electrical and other safety upgrades. We're doing landscaping. And then if you look over to the side where the blue circle is, right now, that's like where the Burger King and the McDonald's sort of back up to that at the back. So right now there's a dumpster over there, which is the primary dumpster for the property, and it's not very well lit. So, it's got people can walk from behind through the property. In order to improve safety and also just create an amenity for the site, we're actually going to create a playground. We're going to move the dumpster over to this far end near building 2, and then that location will become a playground with better lighting and security and so forth. So our hope is that will actually, with the lighting, with the camera and so forth, like also provide safety and maybe less opportunity for people to kind of go over into that corner, but also give the kids a place to play. Because right now, and I'm sure if you guys have ever seen the site, it's very tight. So it's hard. There's not a lot of locations for kids to like ride their bikes or play without risk of, getting hit with the cars driving around. It will all be restriped to conform with, parking requirements and like accessible spaces, and so forth. So that's the scope of work. And I'm just going to go through one more quick thing, which is on the affordability of the project. So you can understand that. And then if anybody has questions, we can go through it in case there's something I didn't cover. But basically it's 83 units total. There's 2 studio units, there's 35 one-bedrooms, and then there's 46 2-bedroom units. It's a family property, so there's actually about, I want to say there's about 50 to 60 school-age children at the property. A lot of working families, some older folks who have been there for a while. Of the 83 units right now, 62 of them are affordable or considered affordable at 60% of area median income. What we're proposing to do as part of this project and as a way to actually be able to get the funds to recapitalize, so is we're going to deepen that affordability. So we're maintaining those 62 units. And then in addition to that, we're just adding, so of the 21 unrestricted units, we're taking 10 of those and making those affordable as well. One thing that I think is important to note is that while those units are quote unquote unrestricted or market, they're actually at rents pretty close to those other tax credit affordable rents. So it's not like, these are market rate units that are $2,000 or something. I mean, they're in the range of say $1,000 to $1,100. And by making those affordable, we'll be able to maintain that affordability and increase that restriction for years. So, one thing I noticed with the town plan was that you're looking for younger households to have a place where they can afford and are paying 30% of their income. And a lot of households obviously are not right now in this rental market. So I feel like this gives an opportunity to have more units affordable to households like that. And what we do find is that there are residents that end up, when they do leave, they go on to buy a home. So it's a sort of starter, affordable property that allows people to save. And of course, some people, like I said, there are some elderly folks and some others that have been there for a long time. In addition to that, there'll be 10 units that will stay or 11 units that will remain unrestricted, so-called market rate units. And I think that about does it. That's a lot. So I'm going to stop and catch my breath. Everybody, if you have questions, feel free to just ask away. But that's what brings us here for this gap, to fill this gap.
This is Peter from the committee. So there's 83 total units.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yes. Yep. There's 83 total, 2 studio units, 35 1-bedrooms, and then there's 46 2-bedroom units.
And I guess my question, and forgive me for not knowing everything that's going on here, but there is an owner of Copley Gardens, correct?
Yes. Yep. That is actually us. So NeighborWorks, the organization that I work for, owns Copley.
my only, and again, forgive me, everybody, but I know at one point, and this was years back, wasn't Eleanor Lane or Eleanor Road in Rockland off of Summer Street, wasn't that supposed to be low-income housing? Anybody?
I didn't know anything about that, no. I mean, I do know that the town falls pretty well short of our percentage for affordable housing that the state's requiring us to be at. That had been an issue for quite a while, actually, was getting to that percentage. There's certain things that we can't apply for and certain statewide kickbacks that we don't get because we do not meet the percentage of affordable housing in town yet. I know there was a couple other projects that are underway. The possibility of the new subdivision off of Norman Street, off of Concord there, right near the golf course and whatnot. But I
All right,
don't know what
I
that
thought
was.
the figure was 10%. I thought we were above the 10% already.
Last I heard, we were still below it, but I could be mistaken. We were significantly.
All right, as well, I could be mistaken. I'm just throwing all this stuff out there because I don't know it all.
Now, Noel, have you guys done this sort of project in other towns using CPA funds?
We've used CPA funds before. To be honest, I don't think it's been necessarily with like an existing project like this. We run the gamut on jobs. So we just actually are finishing a mixed income new construction project in downtown Brockton. We just literally are right at the end. We built 48 units of affordable and workforce housing in downtown, all brand new with an underground garage, using very similar sources to what we're using here, except not as, a lot more extensive because the total development cost was a lot higher for new construction. That didn't have CPA, but it had a lot of it had home funds from the city of Brockton. So, and then I myself, before I came to NeighborWorks, have worked on projects that have received CPA monies in the past. I worked on one project in Brewster down the Cape, and that was a new construction property. And then I worked on a existing property in Bedford, Mass, that got CPA funds as well. And that was similar, more probably closer to this because although it actually had a much larger market rate component, like of the unrestricted units. And what we did do there was propose to transfer some of those and make them affordable as well. One thing I would say to keep in mind here is that these units are affordable, right? Like this isn't coming in, putting in new affordable units outside of those 10 that I mentioned. And part of the reason I mentioned that those market rate units are close in rents right now to the affordable is so that, because a lot of times you get differing opinions and some people want the market rate because they are looking to get the huge, the really high rents. Here at Copley, those unrestricted units are still filling a need for affordable rental units. They're still $1,100 and $1,200. But what we're proposing is, since the majority of the property is already restricted it's actually under restrictions for another 15 years right now. So we're simply proposing to add, in order to get this rehab done, if we add 10 more units and produce 10 more units of affordable housing, it's helpful to the state. And then by increasing their restrictions in terms of how long they're restricted, it's helpful to the state. So, and a lot of times the state doesn't want to see you, at the end of that 15 years, go sell it to a market rate developer. And what we do we're a long-term owner of these type of properties. So we're committed to owning it. We want to beautify it, but we also want to make sure that all the systems are in place to make sure it can last. And we feel like now, it's been 20 years. It definitely needs a refresh. So I will answer just to talk about I do think I looked at I'm pretty sure the percentage in Rockland is below the 10. That said, I to be perfectly honest, because you'll find out anyway, I don't know that the 10 additional here would add to that for you because of the fact that I assume these units are counted in that already because they're already affordable. But I do still think that it meets your, when you look at the town's master plan, the few things you can probably see on the screen, saying where a lot of households are cost burdened, right? So here you have affordable units that are going to be renovated that will meet those needs. Right next to the Rockland Plaza Business District, right? So improving the look there, I think, was one of the things they noted in the master plan. And then just, another location for younger households as they, enter the market. So it's got benefits that I hope, you can see through the CPA, as much as it may not be new affordable housing outside of those 10 units, it's still beneficial to the town.
All right. Yeah, my only concern, and this is something that we had said before, I'll be abstaining from the vote on this when it finally gets to that point. But my only concern is the actual designation of the funds and whether or not it needs to be directly listed that these funds are going specifically for something that falls under CPA. If it's going to improve a parking lot or improve something, that might not qualify.
Yep.
As a use.
Yep. And that actually we could, if that were an issue or something you need to sort of understand better, I know for sure we could address that because, we can allocate it towards whatever you think is appropriate. So if it were, you wanted that money to go towards the unit upgrades or the playground or the, I think anything being done under the construction scope, that would be fine to outside of the 300,000 I mentioned, which is coming in from CDAC. That money is going to be used for three of the accessible units. I think there's a lot of flexibility. So if that's helpful to actually identify a piece of the scope,
yeah,
that's
I think
fine.
that probably be the best bet, going forward with this, being able to, something like this gets on the floor at town meeting. I think the best bet is for people to know exactly, is this is going to be used to update, the two more accessible units that you need to add for, or whatnot.
Maybe the fire protection component or something,
Exactly.
because the fire department did say, it's a tight site. So they had recommendations. So I have that scope all clearly. So yeah, I mean, we would, whatever, to be honest, that you guys think, those two accessible units, the playground, there's any safety upgrades, if you think those, one or more of those things might be the best thing to point out. I agree. That's probably a good idea to do that.
Yeah, and
Well-
we can reach out to even to council to find out what what the best route is, or even the coalition, to see what with a project like this, what the best option is, just so we don't get smoked for misappropriation or whatever.
Yep.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so Noel, when you pull the or move the management office and put it into the new building, is that going to create new units or are you just swapping?
It is essentially swapping. So we're right now the management office is in a existing studio or it's in a location. It's about the size of a studio, I should say. It's very, very small. So we're just switching it to it. It's another studio, but there's space in the hallway that we're pulling in to make it a little bit larger and then have an outside sitting area for it. Because right now you basically just go in and you've got 2 rooms. There's not a lot of privacy. The manager doesn't really have a ton of space to sit. And it's tough. And it's definitely the community itself is every time I'm on site, people, when they're there, are talking to the manager. It's a very sort of community. You know, you see people talking to each other, they're asking questions of the manager and so forth. So I just think having a proper management office, especially an accessible one, is important.
No, absolutely. I want to echo what Derek said. I think the request is currently written is a bit too broad. I think it does need to be a bit more specific. Just to what it,
Mr.
like
Chairman?
you said, it needs to be, you said you'd be happy to allocate it however we see fit, but I think it needs to come back with a little bit more narrow of a scope for what these funds will be used for that would allow us to approve it. Because right now, I don't think we can approve it with how broad the request is.
Yeah, and just to echo on that, and I apologize, I don't know, I haven't done as much research into the community housing, but I did just put in the chat like what community housing can be used for.
Mhm.
And I don't know from what you've put here if that actually qualifies. So I think that's something like Derek mentioned, we might have to go back to the coalition and just kind of determine what the best way to either write it or find a use for it.
I got
Mr.
a
Chairman?
Yep, we got Peter.
Yeah, this is Peter. Yeah. No, Noel, I've got nothing against low income housing whatsoever. But at the same time, again, echoing everybody from the sounds of it, we definitely need some kind of an itemized thing on this to see what is good and what's bad as far as what we can approve. But beyond that, I just know if this ever went to town meeting or when it goes to town meeting, lighting up dumpsters, putting in playgrounds when we've got playgrounds in the rest of the parks that are in such disrepair. And I don't know. I definitely want to see things itemized before I even think about it. I'm all set. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Derek, may I speak?
Absolutely, Joe.
Yes, as a taxpayer and a member of this committee, explain to me how this money is justified from the taxpayers to a company that's in the business of renting out units and putting a playground in. That's a no-no. Everybody in town be asking for playgrounds. I'll be asking for one for my yard.
Well, I think our
scope is-
mission, so we've actually worked with the town. Part of the reason we came to you guys for the CPA is because NeighborWorks has been in discussions with the town administrators regarding the rental assistance, and assisting with that process for your residents that were in need of help and probably still in need of help through COVID. If you look at the NeighborWorks website, you'll see we're not a for-profit, we're a nonprofit organization. We've got 800 units on the South Shore. We're very reputable. We don't go into communities to look to do anything adversary. Like I said, we've owned this property for years, so we are a taxpayer. We've got lots of your school children. I grew up in Rockland, so I know the property very well. My dad actually lived there for a year, a long time ago, which is crazy to think of. But because it's like things come around full circle. I've been really proud of this project because I think it offers up great improvements that might not otherwise have been there for the residents. And those are, those people, those households, they live in Rockland. The hope is that they move on. Some of them move on and go and buy their own homes, just like I had mentioned. So, I understand. I think we thought the playground, I do think the playground is a good solution for there. Whether or not I request the CPA funds for that, if you don't think it's a good idea, I've definitely heard that. I think from our perspective, it's a safety issue. The biggest part of this development is trying to improve the safety there. So safety improvements and building systems so that it doesn't become dilapidated. That's not what we want. So
as a taxpayer, explain to me why I should be using my funds, my taxpayers' money to help fund this place, so we can explain it to the general public when they start asking us questions, because I don't understand it right now. I'm not against helping people out, there's people out there that have property that needs to be upgraded. They can't use these funds for that. So explain
Well,
somehow,
so
some way that
yeah,
I can
I'm not,
understand.
the only thing I can say is, I mean, I was under the impression the CPA funds could be utilized to rehab housing. As a result of this, in affordable housing, we are providing additional 10 affordable units. So 10 affordable units to the town of Rockland. I don't really know where else to go with it. The application is very
about the HUD?
detailed.
How about the
It's
HUD
literally.
program? There's a
There's
company in
already-
town that helps
there's-
out with all-
It seems like to me we're bailing out the owner of the unit that owns it.
Well, I think that if you look at this, the way it's, I mean, and reading through the proposal, the company is a nonprofit, so there isn't a fat cat sitting up there reaping all kinds of profits from it.
I get
It's-
that. but
it'd
what
be
about
very
the owner
similar.
of the-
It's
who
very
owns Coffee
similar.
Gardens?
That's the
Guys,
owner of Copley Gardens is a nonprofit.
Yeah, all of the money that comes through to us is all mission driven. So everything from, we just finished a deaf and disabled housing project, brand new in Quincy. We do workforce housing. Right now, we're working on a veterans home in the town of Marshfield that was very well received. We are also in the process of creating elderly housing in Holbrook in the town center. Yeah, I mean, I've worked for profits before that deal in affordable housing, and this is not those companies. We're very well regarded on the South Shore, and I don't really know what else to say. I mean, it's approximately 1% of our total sources, the CPA funds, and I understand it is a big percent of your allocation. But as mentioned, we were looking to close that gap. We sat with the fire department because they had issues to try to improve things for them. I'm not honestly sure what else to add,
Noel,
but I know
Peter.
where you're coming from.
Sorry. Noel, I'm not coming down on you or Naval Works. I guess I don't understand where, if it was affordable rooms or housing for veterans, I don't know. I just don't get it, I guess. And I apologize for that.
That's okay.
It just seems like we're trying to bail out whoever the owner is, Copley Gardens. It just seems like we're bailing them out.
I think that I mean, from my understanding of it, not really bailing it out, but contributing to something that's, it's, look at a nonprofit as almost a charitable organization.
Mhm.
It's at the end of the day, nobody's sitting there, in a mansion, or they don't have stock shareholders that are pulling dividends out of it like other companies do. It's a not-for-profit. This is what the community housing money is for. Unfortunately, the only things that we've had applications come through for community housing, the rental assistance was the first one that we were able to do, because everything else was more or less upkeep and property maintenance money that people were asking for existing things. Now, something like this, where it's actually a capital improvement, some of these things, especially, and the big thing that kind of really sticks out that I could see it being completely permissible for would be the accessibility, and adding accessible housing that's affordable, whether it's ADA accessibility and affordability through the town's affordable housing initiative, I mean, this is kind of, with the exception of brand new construction, that we just, as a committee, we just don't have the money for brand new constructions. That's probably where I could see something like this helping. Especially where it seems like, along the other lines, there are some other people in town that are on board with this, or at least trying to move this project forward, from the
We-
discussions that I've had.
We have 3 other units in town that are owned by the town. One's a brand new place and the other 2 low income housing. And we have trouble maintaining those properties, never mind maintaining someone that owns their own building. The town's struggling as it is to maintain those 2 places, the one behind the plaza and the one over by Concord Street.
Well, the
So-
big thing there is maintain. Maintain's not admissible, Joe.
Right.
We can't pay to maintain anything. What we can pay is new construction, new accessible construction. Things like that, we can use it. It's very strict with what we can use it for.
Yeah,
I
but
don't even know that that's even admissible. But I think,
they came to us last year for windows and we had to turn them down. And they
Yep.
needed the windows desperately. They ended
oh, I
up
guarantee they did.
getting the money for that. So I'm having a tough time with this one, Derek.
Oh, I totally understand. Like I said, I'm actually, like I said, I'm excluding myself from voting. I'm going to remove myself from the vote on it. I think that we, as a committee, need to look at it for exactly what it is. And I don't think it's bailing out a private company. I don't think it's along those lines at all. I mean,
If all the units were gonna be low income housing, I might consider it, but not where it's not completely low income housing. I can't vote on this.
oh,
I think we need to take into account what they're after. They're asking for 100,000 on a 4 million, Noel?
14 million.
Yeah,
$14
4
million
million in
project.
construction.
So 4 million in construction. They're asking for 100,000. That, quick math, is a very small fraction of a percent for this project. And it's really just, it's contingency money that they're asking for in order to help. And I'm inclined to help because, I know a lot of the families that have lived there or currently live there. And it is a nice affordable housing complex that, we have in town. So I am inclined to support this, especially where we're adding 10 additional units, or not adding 10 additional units, but adding 10 units that will be wage restricted for rent caps. I think that's something there. And I think that's probably what I'd recommend, Noel, that you kind of go back to the well and rewrite the pre-app to really focus on that you're adding the 10 additional affordable units. Because then I think it does fit into this, I'm lost for the word right now. The restrictions we have based on how we can use this money. I'm going to read what John wrote, and I think he copied and pasted right from the CPC website. CPA funds may be spent on the acquisition, creation, preservation, and support of community housing, and for the rehab or restoration of community housing that has been acquired or created using CPA funds. So that hasn't been acquired or created using CPA funds, so we can't do rehab or restoration, and that's why the window project failed, because it was essentially a rehab restoration. But this is creation of community housing. If we were to fund this and it was written that way, to say it would go toward those 10 units and to make, to upgrade those 10 units and make them affordable, that is the creation of 10 units that are affordable under those caps. And that's my recommendation. I am inclined to support this because we don't get a lot of housing requests with these funds. And I'd also like the folks to remember that 85,000 of this is going to be taken from that COVID relief that the town wants us to rescind because they had no real use for it.
Yeah.
So really, it's only 15,000 of new monies that we're looking at here. And so it's really all housing money. It's not part of the other funds that we're pulling from. It really does live within that housing money.
I think that the designation is the biggest thing. Noel had touched on the fact that those units were already affordable in price. But as soon as they're actually deemed specifically affordable, that designation of affordable housing, it really changes everything with those extra 10 units. You know, we keep creating those, making the other 2 units that you're talking about, 5 total, being accessible units. That's another thing, because you're creating a new space. It's not maintenance, it's not windows and paint. It's, you know, we had a housing request for windows and paint. And I've had to answer this about 100 times, why the library got money for windows and paint and trim and the housing authority did not. The library is a National Register of Historic Places building, and they would consider that preservation, because without them, they were falling apart. The housing could not receive it because it was strictly a maintenance issue. Little designations mean the world, you know, whether it's something admissible or not. I think that we should put this in front of Stuart, touch base with him and see what his ideas are. Have a quick discussion with either him or one of the other advisors from the coalition. Chase Mack is pretty knowledgeable as well over there, and go from there. I'm just more concerned about the timeline for the special town meeting, Noel.
No, that makes sense. I hear you. Whatever you recommend. I mean, I'm happy to come back if you think a more streamlined, you know, maybe the proposal was just too broad, because it kind of, I was trying to capture and answer all the pieces. But maybe it was actually a little too broad. So I'm happy to come back with something a little more straightforward, or I'll wait for you to talk to Stuart and see and just like confirm that this type of project would meet it. You know, I know I did, obviously I've looked at the CPA and so forth, and I agree with you. I do tend to think that it's that production of those 10 units versus the improvements made to the existing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
So,
I was just,
Derek, Mr. Chairman, I hear what you're saying about, you know, the library and the housing and the questions you answered, because I've answered a couple of questions myself, but the town owns the library, number one, and number two, I just, again, call me stupid. I don't understand why it's still, to me, it sounds like and I know, Noel, I'm not throwing this at you by any means, and I apologize, but it just sounds like we're trying to bail out an owner of a unit that, I don't know. I'll shut my mouth and let the meeting go on.
No, everybody needs to be satisfied. I mean, that's the one thing. Everybody needs to be satisfied with the answers they're
I'm not
getting.
satisfied right now.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying, is everybody needs to be satisfied to a point of understanding you know, where everything going. I think I'm tending to look at it more towards what a nonprofit is and what nonprofits do. They operate without a profit. So when
Yeah.
they do go out and get grants and bring in things, you
The
know,
the offices of a nonprofit take a wage. out of that.
everybody does. Everybody makes a salary. Everybody makes a salary.
Correct. So I like to move this on and table this until we get something from Stuart, a little more insight, and her application be narrowed down exactly what use this money is going to be used for. And I suggest not to put a playground in there.
Noel, you
No,
mentioned,
we'll light up dumpsters.
Noel, you mentioned previously that other towns have approved CPA funds for other projects. Am I remembering part of the conversation?
yeah, yep.
And in those instances, when you did your presentation, was the presentation similar to this in its broad scope, or did you have like specific things that you presented?
It was the last one I did, the Bedford project, was a few years ago, as was Brewster. But if I remember correctly, the applications were pretty broad as well. But they were also, I could probably actually find the applications and double check. Brewster was new construction. So that was a little different because it was new creation of 27 affordable apartment homes. So I think having it as one whole application describing all of that was fine. The Bedford application was, like I said, an existing property. And to be honest, I don't remember as detailed of an application. And that was what I used to work for a nonprofit called Preservation of Affordable Housing in downtown Boston. And this was a property called Bedford Village. And we actually received a $3 million CPA allocation from the town. And it was an existing property with affordable and market. And we were transforming some of the market rate units to affordable. If it's
That's
helpful,
other
I can try
towns
to
and other budgets.
some information on that.
Still the same rules, Pete.
That's other towns and other budgets.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was a lot of money. I don't know the details behind like why or how. I know that development in particular was in danger of going market. And the state did not want to see that happen. So Preservation of Affordable Housing, we came in and purchased it from another buyer, unlike here where we already own it, but we purchased it from someone else and made sure it was to remain affordable for a longer period of time. So in here, the property, the units that are affordable, as I mentioned, those expire in 2035. So there are 62 units right now that will expire in the next 15 years. At that point, they could go market. Our plan is to maintain the affordability longer on those units and then add the additional 10.
I do think that, if you do go back to revise it, then, going where we said before, the specificity would probably be to your advantage, especially if you're going to be able to point out, like, this is how it aids the community. Like what Joe Reese was saying previously about, we had a project previously that they wanted to replace all these windows. We had turned them down, even though, it was housing for the elderly, right, Joe? And
Yes.
so, I mean, even if we were to approve it and still went to town meeting, it would still have the same question that Joe and Peter were bringing up, how is this benefiting the community? So I think that it probably is too broad as it is. And if you go look at the requirements for CPA funds and try to make it as specific as possible, it'd probably be more advantageous to you to getting it approved.
I appreciate obviously all of your input. I do understand the questions. I obviously live and breathe this. So I'm doing this day to day. I've always worked in affordable housing. NeighborWorks is a great organization. So I guess it just comes from me like, well, why? I don't understand. But I do, of course, understand where you're coming from. And I'll make sure to fine tune it so it makes sense. And hopefully answer any questions that came up further,
Can I entertain a motion, please?
Excuse me?
You
Can I
can vote.
make a motion
For what? Like,
to table this until we get more information from Stuart and more details from her application on specifics of where the money's going?
all right. Now, my other concern, just before we ask for a second on that, Noel, you said before that if for any reason this didn't go through or didn't get on town meeting, were you under any constraints for this town meeting?
I think we're okay. I'm not sure how it would work for next year, but the plan right now is to close at the end of August and begin construction in September with a completion date in May of next year. But I think we could wait since we probably were not going to be able to close with the funds if awarded anyway, since it would be after closing. So if it would, so we need to work out a different timeline, I think that can happen for sure.
All right, I just want to make sure that it's nothing that's gonna get smoked here.
No,
And-
the owner will have to come up with the money.
So, yeah, Noel, for regarding timing, how we typically entertain these these requests is that the application comes in by October, the pre-app comes in by October 31st. We vote whether or not to move forward with it, then the application, and then it goes to regular town meeting, which is typically in April. I know we were trying to get this on for the special town meeting. I don't think it really warrants it because really special town meetings for emergency use, and this doesn't sound like an emergency use. I think if we get more information, I really want to look at that Bedford project because we can go on the CPC website and look at all the projects that have been approved.
Yep.
And take a look at how that was written and it was approved. Because really one of the big constraints that we have is we need to fall under these guidelines. And if we don't, there are instances where towns have been sued for really misappropriating CPA funds.
Right, that makes sense.
Even if it wasn't, everyone had the best intentions.
Right, no, that makes sense, understood. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. All right. So.
And if I find anything, I'll direct you to it as well on the Bedford. I can share it with the CPA email address.
That'd be fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so there is a motion on the floor to table this for tonight until we can get some more information from Stuart and a little bit of clearance on whether or not we can move forward with anything.
I'll second that.
I'll give you the
Alright.
second, Pete.
All right, all in favor of tabling this until we can get some more
Aye,
information?
Peter.
Roll call. Pete?
Hi, Tom Reagan.
John?
Hi, Joe Reese.
Joe?
Hi, John Hennessy.
Hi, Steve O'Donnell.
All right.
Thank
And
you,
mine.
Noel.
Thank
And
you.
Derek.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Noel.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much,
Take
Noel.
care. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Next item, why don't we combine this one if we can, if somebody wants to put a motion to jump over 4 and go directly to 5, because we see Dave is here. And he
I
might
make
be
a
able to
motion.
actually shed some light too on some of the status.
Peter will make a motion.
All right. Can I get a second?
Second,
All right, all those in favor of surpassing 4 to 5 on the items list?
Joe
Derek, aye.
Reese, in favor.
hi, Tom Reagan.
Hi, John Hennessy.
Hi, Steve O'Donnell.
IP will,
And Pete. All right. All right, Dave. Are you with us?
I am sorry. I'm out on the road. We're working on Hingham Street. So I'm not sure where you want to start with the current status of some of the projects. So I'll just go in how I had them in order.
Yeah,
So,
go right ahead.
all right. So one of the first projects was, on the side of the town hall, the left, as you're looking at it from Union Street. That was in a joint discussion with the veterans, if you remember. That
Yep,
was
the,
brought up.
Remembrance Park, yep.
Yes. So I met with the veterans and we discussed how we were going to incorporate some of the old placards and memorials that are down in the storage of the town hall. So we're going to try to mimic what we did on the right side of the town hall with a little mini park with by adding some picnic tables. And then the veterans were in agreement. What they're going to do is they're going to add benches with each service, being, the Marines bench, Navy bench, Coast Guard, etc. So there'd be a set of 6 benches. So as far as that goes, and then so we're going to start that. The highway is going to start prepping that out, and then we'll add some of the contractors as far as the brick paving and etc. So that was the first one. The second project we had was the one we were doing with Charlie Williams in regards to the center bollards and making the the rail trail a little bit more efficient with the sensors and adding the RFBs, lighting as they're doing major crossings. So that project's gonna start in a couple weeks. And that's gonna have the censored bollards as people enter the bollards about 15, 20 feet back from the rail trail. They will click on, if you see the RFBs that we have at the school zones, it'll be equivalent to those, and they'll light up. And there will also be an override in case the bollards don't work or there's an issue with them that people can use the push buttons. So I know I took a look at the ones they had down the Cape, and they didn't use the bollards. What they did is they affixed sensors on like signposts, and they were having issues. And the one thing they said they wish they did is have an override or a backup system, which is what we'll do. So this year, what we're going to do is we're going to do the Plain Street intersection of the rail trail, the Liberty Street intersection. And then what we're going to do is we actually had the company come out, and they're going to readjust and add new pedestrian crossing lighting and ADA compliant lighting at the intersection of Union Street and East Water and West Water. So that will add a little bit more efficiency and make it more compliant. And then we'll also be doing the crosswalks over with that same funding. I'm trying to think. The third project.
Dave, solar?
What's that?
Are those gonna be solar?
They are not. So what we're going to do is we actually, to save some money, the highway is going to install and cut the conduit and run it over to the utility poles, as to save, between 5,000 and 7,000 a set. So what we found out is I looked at 3 or 4 different areas where they were using these, all down at the Cape, at the big trail down there. And the ones that were having problems were, like I said, some of the solar powered ones, because the maintenance on them as far as the batteries, which we do anyways right now as far as the ones over in the school zone. And then the other issue, like I said, with the sensors, they use an affixed sensor, and we're going to use the bollard. So, and like I said, we are going to there'll be a backup system just in case the bollards is a failure of the bollards. And then, in downtime, there'll still be a push button option on those as well. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And we'll be updating the crosswalks too, as far as that goes. And then also there'll be a larger crosswalk on Union Street, coming from corner to the ADA across the street where the rail trail meets, coming out of the Linden Street.
So is that going to be, are you changing the direction of it to do a diagonal, or is it still going to be with the flow of traffic 90 degrees?
It's actually, if you remember, we did a temporary before we paved the road to try it out.
Yep.
There was actually a crosswalk that went from the corner over where the mobile phone store is,
Yep.
and went right directly across. So what we'll do is we'll add new signage as well, rail trail, walking path, and then and have that, kind of signaling where the rail trail from that corner over. Because what's been happening now are people going to that corner, then they cross over West Water, and then they cross over Union.
Yeah.
So we're looking to add it. So that will also, with the upgrades on Union Street, East Water, West Water on the ped lining, that'll also be a timer from that specific signal. So it'll allow people to go across that corner wise. Because right now,
diagonal, that's good.
right. If anybody remembers, when you push those, it's a very quick, but those lights are from the 80s. So it's still an old set of lights on. So they're going to update all the pedestrian crossing. I got together with Charlie, and we were just trying to figure out, and that's a major concern, obviously, for pedestrians and, coming out across Union Street. So I think that's going to that'll be a huge upgrade for that intersection, as well as pedestrians in the town.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. One of the
Can we
third project.
backtrack a little bit?
What's that, Pete?
I know. Can we just backtrack a little bit on the town hall, Dave? Can we all looking at it on the left side? Can we build that like right up so we're level with the top grade? Like where the bushes are?
Yeah, it's gonna mimic the opposite side on the right. So what we'll do is we'll build a wall up. It will flatten out the grade so the topography will be level like we did on the right side. And
Because it's still, even the right side's still tough for me to
yeah,
cut down with a machine. I start to slide. I was up
yeah.
there this morning myself.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the object. We're gonna try to build that all up. And then with the funding, there'll be a walkway. So we can't go straight with the walkway. So we'll have to cut the shrubbery out of the front as we did on the other side, do the ADA accessibility from the front walks. And then there'll have to be some stairs added coming down, meeting that ramp, and also coming down from the town hall because the slopes don't meet the ADA compliance on that side. So
Yeah, no, and definitely let's get rid of the shrubs. I mean, I'll pull them out myself.
yeah, that shouldn't be a problem, Pete. We know you guys are kind of locked up with the rain and everything. So we'll go in there, we'll pull it out with the machines when we're pulling the granite out at the same time as we're doing the walls. So we're gonna try to do a lot of the work on a Saturday, so it's not, obviously bothering town hall at all. And then we'll call the contractors in once we get everything prepped up on that project. I think the third project we have going is actually the mini park at the Dunkin' Donuts. So we have a meeting out there with Bob Galvin, the town land use attorney, and also the owner of Dunkin' Donuts, which is not the owner of Dunkin' Donuts, but the owner of the building that Dunkin' Donuts is housed in. And we're going to go over the layout. We did a preliminary drawing, which I will also forward to the board for the sketch on how we're going to incorporate that in. So there'll be a mini park there. We're going to incorporate the butterfly chairs that it's actually probably done about 2 years ago. Then the COVID hit, and we literally ran out of time to install those. So it's a pretty good design. It's going to encompass that whole area in front of Dunkin' Donuts. Entering over, there'll be some walls. Reached out to National Grid as far as the lighting, so they're gonna help us with the lighting situation over there as well. So we'll be lit up at night, so it won't be won't be kids like hiding behind the shrubs. It won't be a security risk over there. We'll be lit at night, and also allow a little bit more accessibility at night as well on the rail trail. So that's in the preliminary stages of work. Town hall will be started within 2 weeks. The project, as far as the bollards and the rail trail, will be started in a couple weeks. And then I think the last project we had, and I know we originally talked about this 2 years ago, was the accessibility to link up and connect the rail trail, the senior center, the school zone with the town forest. So if anybody knows, so what we did is we put in for a shared streets grant for the last 2 years, and we just put it in for the third time, and it actually went through. So that's part of the funding for this project, which we originally came here for, because we were putting in, if you remember, we were putting in the shared streets grant for the first time. So that's how long ago it was. And now we just got it accepted. So what that does is that allows accessibility for recreational use to link the rail trail from Plain Street, ADA crossings, RFBs, and then also to go over to the town forest. And then the second phase would be to go from the town forest on the backside on Spruce Street, and then link that with Union Point. So the state, what they do is they issue us a check. We're allowed to add that. There'll be bicycle lanes, ADA ramps. We're doing a butt transit station for pickup at the senior center, so we can get the BAT bus to go over there for a stop as well. In case the seniors need to go shopping or anything. Add another module to that. And then, between that and then adding the lighting that we're doing now, we'll kind of upgrade that. So that's just to improve the status of that connectivity So what it was is originally what we were talking about is, we're trying to get more walkability and more trails available. So between the rail trail being 3.1 miles and then adding the town forest with another, 2 miles, and then that links over to Union Point, which is another 7 or 8 miles trail wise, not including the walking paths on the main road. So we think it's a pretty good project. So
Dave, I know you might not have the answer for this, but is there any way of expanding the parking lots at Spruce Street on both sides?
as far as, I mean, like we could definitely do it on the Rockland side. I'm not sure about where it links up at Union Point on how that's used with the Union Point officials, but we definitely could work and expand the town forest on the North Ave side if the board wants to do that. I'm not sure how the town forest is regulated. I usually reach out to George Anderson, but we could also do it on the back side over on the Spruce Street station, too. So, I mean,
Right.
that's something that could definitely be done. We did a substantial cutback at the town forest before last winter and then, graded out the road, but we're, more than happy to try to expand if they want more parking on the south side and also the north side of the forest.
I don't
So-
think the park has control over that. Pete could answer it better than me, but I don't think so. I think that's open space.
Separate
Yeah,
committee.
might be something to reach out to the open space committee, see if they'll be a little bit amicable about us, helping to expand the town forest parking. on
There's
both
actually a town
sides.
forest committee that oversees.
Is,
it.
is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I know I reached out to them on just on the linking and it didn't really involve too much. And I'm not sure if we're allowed to use asphalt over there, to, clean up that, or if it has to be permeable material at the town forest. So. But I know.
Joe, we're over there on a weekly basis, maintaining it on regular time, not overtime shit.
Yeah.
Is any of this, none of this stuff can be done on regular time, Dave? And I'm not bashing our guys, because my guys are in the same union your guys are, but none of it can be done on regular time,
As far as which area?
any of it. Town
Well,
hall, I mean, I
no, the
get it,
only
we gotta sub
the-
out to build a wall
they-
and things like that, but.
No, everything that,
Things like that.
the only project we're doing on a Saturday is town hall. That's just
We
to stay out of because of the parking situation.
Yeah, we can't just rip those bushes out in the front row from the
Well,
grounds on
the
the
bush-
street.
Yeah, the bushes is just one of the smallest thing. I mean, that's probably the smallest part of the project. We have to put a stone wall up on the back side. We couldn't do that during the week during town hall hours because we'd be on the back side. Yeah, so everything else as far as the rail trail and then the bollards and then also the rail trail and the last of the going over to the town forest, that's all regular time, a lot of time. Yeah. Yeah, the
I
only
know
one
it is.
would be town hall.
I know.
Yeah. And then
Yeah, my question with this going forward, and the only question that I have about the projects wise is the connectivity of the shared street grant that you got. Would need almost the same thing as the last situation with Ms. Humphreys, is an itemized list of exactly what the CPA funds would be used for that, because they're so strict on, we ran into this, like I said, and you've heard it probably 100 times. Norwell did a very similar thing where they put in a connecting path from the high school to the library.
right.
And it was paved and marked out and lighted. They put little signs on it and stuff like that. And they were in turn immediately sued because it didn't fall under what is deemed a trail or pathway. The court decided that it was a sidewalk.
Right.
And where that actually was off the street a little bit, doing something that's on the street is my biggest concern. That's what we had discussed the last time when we tabled this, was because we weren't actually sure of the feasibility of using CPA funds for something like that. I think it's going to take us running into the commission again and getting an actual, like an itemized list of what it would be used for, before
we
we
take
could
it-
actually fund it.
We take a recreation approach with this, where I heard Dave talk about bike lanes,
Bike lanes, I
Running.
think is
So-
would probably be something pretty good. Like,
rather than going open space or that way, the
exactly.
recreation angle.
Yep, I think that you would definitely have to have something in there as a recreational thing, the creation of laned, bike routes, or, lined out the way you guys did on Union Street when you created the new bike lanes. Something along those lines, that might be something that's admissible. I don't know. We're gonna probably have to go to Stuart about that. But first, I think the first thing would be to get a list of exactly what you'd want to use the funds for. How much it would be, this, that, and the other thing, almost like a rewritten application for it. I'm not sure how much your grant was for, or what the scope of the project is, but just looking at it from the outside in, I think it's a fantastic idea. I mean, Don O'Con's been a pretty big proponent about a thing called the Emerald Necklace, which was basically connecting every open space in Rockland with some sort of a path or a connecting route, so that you could start at one side, maybe at Thompson's Pond in Abington, and do a complete circle, around the town. I think this is a great aspect of that. I'm just not sure about what it would fall under, as far as if it would be something we could use the funds for or not. It's going to come down to the wording and exactly what it is, what it's for.
Right. I think once you see what the shared street grant was for and the accessibility, it's almost the same parameters as what.
Oh, we lost him.
Yep. We lost Dave.
I don't, I think I know where he's going. He's saying it's the same parameters. I don't really think it is. Because we know we can't use it for sidewalks in the shared street program. I haven't done much research into it, but just from the sounds of it, talks about it's specifically for roads.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't know.
How much are you asking for?
Offhand, and that's the thing, is that application was like 2.5, 3 years ago. I know I have it. It's in one of the files.
He's gonna have to update that then.
It was, yeah. Oh, yeah. Everything's increased. It's going to have to be updated. But I think at the time, I want to say, if memory strikes me right, it was like, 40 grand or something like that, $45,000. I'm not 100% sure. I wouldn't stand by that number. That just keeps popping in my head. And I just, let me see.
I had it written down, but I didn't put a price next to it
Yep.
because we tabled it.
Derek, can I chime in for 1 second? When I jumped on this committee, CPA, to start it with you and Joe, I thought there was something right there about all kinds of overtime. It didn't have anything to do with overtime monies. Now all of a sudden it does. And I get it. Some things have to be done after hours. I'm just looking at saving some money. That's all.
Oh, no, 100%. That's,
Still be found after Noel and that crap. I'm sorry.
no, the overtime aspect, I mean, whatever it is. What the approved amount was the approved amount that we gave to it. they've got to justify the overtime through the town, where that money's not going to an outside contractor to bid. It's basically, that's something that's gonna be seen through the accountant and the treasurer.
I could do that every day of the week, and I've already
Yeah.
seen this fucking proven
Oh,
left and right the wrong way.
Yeah,
Why do we be broadcast on YouTube?
Live.
Sorry. Okay, sorry,
I mean,
a lot of people.
like I said, I don't know the ins and outs of it. I do know there are some specifics to it as far as, just the funding sources and what it can be used for. That would be something that you'd probably have to discuss with John Ellard. Because in the end of the day, he's the one that's signing it. You know what I mean?
Well,
technically, it has nothing to do with us, Pete.
It has nothing to do with us. It
Yeah.
doesn't.
I understand that, and I apologize. I'm just saying, I'm always looking out for the town, period.
Yep.
And if it's
Absolutely.
something that can be done for nothing on regular time, then it should be, period.
We hear you.
Yeah, and to that point too, I think, and we talked about this a while ago, but like when we do these projects and we approve projects, they really should be done not by town employees. I mean, town employees have their own jobs to do and their own regulations. We should be really getting estimates from outside sources so that they're actually doing the work. And if they have to work overtime, that's up to them. They get a set amount of money to work with, and that's what they need to do. So, we really got to think about
Yeah.
that.
Are we bound by union rules? Only
If you
certain-
if you can save town money by doing it on regular time and not subbing out, putting in a fence aside. I mean, we cleaned up Mount Pleasant, and yeah, I don't physically have the time for my department to put new fencing in, but the rest of it was cleaned up on town time, not on overtime. And that's all I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean-
silly things like that.
The CPA money, when it's used and we use town labor to do it, you can't use CPA to pay for a budget shortfall. You can't use CPA to pay payroll. It can be included in project costs for capital improvements, different building projects or improvement projects for town. And at that point, if it is available to be used through the town employees, that's perfectly fine.
Okay,
A lot
so
of towns do that.
I went to-
because you-
I'm sorry to everybody to sound sour, but I went to last fall town meeting and had my budget cut because other departments over expended on what they were given, and my budget was cut because of it. So that kind of means nothing to me right now.
No, I understand. I mean, it's from a CPA standpoint, it's
I
not
could
really,
overspend too.
it's
No,
not our spot to say,
I know. I'm just saying I've got $10 to run my house. I know I've got only $10. If I overspend, I don't have somebody else to bail me out.
Absolutely.
All right, so we lost Dave. No way of getting him back?
No, he's
joined a couple of
computed-
times and
His computer died is what came. He sent me a text message. Just said his computer died. So,
Well, I think with his proposal, I mean, he'd have to resubmit a new app, like you were talking about, Derek, and specifically say what that money was going to be used for. And then we can determine if
Isaac.
it's acceptable.
exactly. So we're gonna need an application from him,
Yeah.
a new one.
And itemize it just like Noel has to.
Yep. It'll have to be the same thing. I think that, I mean, it's a gray area. I don't want to get anybody, in hot water or give anybody any reason to, be able to come back at this committee or the town and say, hey, that's misappropriation of funds or whatever. Like I said, I've gotten several phone calls, several emails over the past few months of people asking some pretty pointed and specific questions about CPA. Which leads me to believe that a lot more people are paying attention to it than you would actually think.
That's awesome.
It's a good thing.
Oh, it's definitely a good thing. So since Dave is no longer with us, we can,
I'll make a motion to table it until he can get back to us with an itemized cost on everything.
We don't need a
application.
motion. We don't need
Yeah,
a
you-
motion.
We don't need a motion because we never had anything on the floor.
All right.
We'll just table it until further notice, until we can get we don't have an active application for it. At this point, it was just a discussion. That's what I even put that in the agenda, that it was a discussion, because we don't have an application, a current application for that project. So going forward from that to the last item on the list is just a general discussion.
I got a bunch of bills that we need to act on.
Yeah, yeah,
You want me
we
to run
have
through 'em?
our dues are due.
Yep.
1750. So that we need to,
Can I pay that?
yep, we need to
We need to vote on them all, right?
make a vote on it to pay that. Yep.
Didn't I just get an invoice from Sue Ide? What was that thing I just paid?
Oh, no,
Did you
that was,
pay
that was for the bids notification in the Patriot Ledger. They ran a notification for bids in the Patriot Ledger, and then there was also another one that you had to sign off on for an appraisal.
Yeah,
That's
Beach
what
Street
it
appraisal.
was. That's what it was, like 1750, I think it was. Or
Yeah,
something like that.
1750 happens to be our dues payment too.
Oh, no.
For the coalition.
I have them right in front of me, so let me go through them. Because we got a couple here. So we have, the coalition payment for 1750. You want to take a roll call vote on these, Derek? How do you want to do them?
Yeah, same thing. A motion, a second, and a roll call vote.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Second.
All right, and a roll call vote to accept and make payment of 1750 for our dues to the Community Preservation Coalition.
Aye, Tom Reagan.
Hi, Derek Yule.
Hi, Joe Reese.
IPDO.
Hi, John Hennessy.
Hi, Steve O'Donnell. All right, next one.
That is unanimous.
Is payment to the Patriot Ledger in the amount of $534.91 for was this last year's listing for our open meeting? Is that what that was for?
Not for last year. It was, if it was
Oh, no, it was the hand tub restoration
the bid,
for the bid. Yeah.
was that not what we already actually paid?
I went this is everything I cleaned out of our mailbox.
Yeah, I think that Tom actually went up and already paid that one.
This is
Tom,
already
do you have
paid.
your list for that?
I'm sorry, you're asking me.
Yes, yeah. Do you have that listed? What you signed off on for amounts?
I do not have a list.
I
I've
believe
only-
that was
It's
it.
only been 3 things, so
Yeah, I think that was one of them, was the hand tub payment that was for the Patriot Ledger. And if it strikes me right, I can actually look at it because I have it right here on my email. That was the one that Sue had messaged us about as well.
Okay.
Let me see, Sue. All right. Invoice for payment. So this one was 1750, that's our dues. So we know that one. The next one.
yeah, Derek, I'm looking at the last thing I did was the community preservation due to 1750. It was sent to me by Sue on July 8th, and I signed off on it and filled out a transmittal and returned it. So I think that's paid.
No, you did. You know what? You did sign it.
Yep.
You did sign it. I'm looking in the wrong spot. So we don't, the ones that Tom already signed, we don't have to vote
No,
on?
because they've already been signed. and
All right, then for
allocated.
our-
They're rolling budget items, so.
Yeah, for posterity, then the other one we had was the Beach Street appraisal in the amount of 2,900. Tom signed off on that as well.
Yep.
Great. All right, a couple more here, guys. Another one that came in, this was a while ago. This isn't a bill, this is a notification. We may have already talked about it, but this is for the funds that went into our account related to Registry of Deeds surcharges that we get funding for. And Rockland in 2020, huge jump, $169,680, which was up from 63,000 and change in 2019. And then finally, I think this is the same thing. I think it's the CP, the coalition dues. The original. 1750, yep. We had one more thing is Doug asked us to take a vote for an article to rescind the $85,000 to the COVID relief funds. I'm inclined, my stance on it is it's not an emergency. If we're making Noel wait until regular town meeting, we don't need to act on it now.
I agree.
Motion to rescind.
Second.
Do we want to go forward and rescind it or not?
I thought Steve said he didn't want to do it at this time. Didn't have to.
Right.
Yeah, why? Yeah, I mean, that was when Noelle was talking. I was surprised that we were trying to get hers on the emergency meeting as well. Like, why would we do that? And why?
Doesn't seem like an emergency.
It really wasn't an emergency. It was something that, we figured if we could do it, great. If we can't, great. Either way, it just been another article that we could have gotten out of the way if it had been a little more precise and whatnot. We would have been able to act on it tonight. But where there needs some real clarification, some more information given, and gotten some information from Stuart about the project. We don't have to rescind that money as of right now, because she most likely is not going to make it on this town meeting anyways. Would have to have another 2 meetings before the 10th of August to get it on this new town meeting, which we are going to have to do for the open spaces purchase, where we did do it tonight. We're going to want to have one more meeting before that article has to be turned in and so forth, just to clarify anything with the wording, because we were, in my notes, I'm showing that we were going to ask them about that, if it should be clarified, should it be stipulated that 250 is the max coming out of open spaces or whatnot. So more than likely, I'll talk to Doug and we'll try to figure that out. If we needed to, we could always have a quick half-hour meeting to rescind that money if we need to, but I'd like to get some more clarification on that.
So we know we're going to rescind that money because they didn't need it. We need to get it back. But we're just saying we don't need to put it in the emergency meeting
No.
now. We could do it next year at next town meeting, and that would be fine.
And technically, I mean, that wasn't an article that was put in, it wasn't good in perpetuity. It wasn't something that was going to happen every year. That was a one-time payment that we made to help out during last year's COVID crisis, where they didn't use it, they didn't have to use a bunch of it or whatnot. Putting that money back into the community housings account, I don't think is almost even really necessary, because it's
Well-
not spent, just turns back over within the calendar year, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, and that's my
You're right.
question, I guess, like, because even like this one with the 900,000, like, if they don't get that grant, that money, we're not using that money. So do we have to, every time something, our money doesn't get used, or like you said, it's supposed to roll back into the account, we have to put an article to get that back?
No, we're not supposed to,
Okay,
not under my understanding.
okay. So then, yeah, we should just not talk about this one either and table it and get some more information about it.
Exactly. And I'll talk to Doug about it and find out exactly what the stipulation was and why it's necessary. He might know something that we don't, and just
They have
wants
to do with town bylaws.
yeah. And it very well could. It very well could have to do with the town bylaws, something that he, like I said, he might know something we don't.
Well-
More than likely he does.
If he's requesting it, why don't we just rescind it then?
He said it was in part if we approved the Naval Works. Yeah, let me share the actual wording of the email. He said, hey guys, when you meet to review and potentially approve the Copley Garden CPA application, can you also take a formal vote to recommend rescinding Article 48 from the 6/22/20 town meeting, which appropriated 85,000 for the Rockland Housing Assistance Program? Or rescind that article on 9/13/21 special town meeting when we vote for the new Copley Garden application.
Yeah, so none of that makes sense.
Actually, and then the last two words make sense. Thanks, Doug.
Doesn't.
Yeah, we shouldn't have to unless, I mean, if we were moving forward with Noel's right now,
Right.
yeah.
Otherwise, let's leave the COVID assistance option out there until we need to use that money.
Yeah, and just to, sorry, I don't want to keep talking because I really don't want to keep meeting here, but we shouldn't be doing any special things for any applications that haven't gone through our normal process, unless it's something the town really needs and we're really like for. Like, I mean, this, obviously this one here, $100,000, we were pretty divided on even if it could be used, why should we even be using it? So it's not even in our cycle. We shouldn't even be discussing it. Like, it shouldn't be here. And it certainly shouldn't be in an emergency town meeting. So can we just, if those come from now on, can we just say, nope, we'll deal with it after October 31st for next year? Thanks.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. This went to the selectmen and I have no idea why it went to them.
Okay.
It went to the
Yep.
selectmen as a proposal from the organization that owns the place. The CPA, I think, to be totally honest with you, I think that was kind of an afterthought.
Yeah.
They're doing this no matter what, whether they got the money or they didn't.
Right.
Mhm.
It was kind of an afterthought that would save a nonprofit $100,000.
I got
Okay.
one more bill I
Wow.
found. If we can just hit
I'll
that
go
quickly.
out and buy some apartments and come to you people next year.
Well, Pete and Joe, if they do actually submit it correctly and it does qualify, we're gonna have to at least, take a look at it and see if it's,
Entertain it. Yes, I agree, but
I totally agree with that.
Yep.
But what I don't agree with is, lighting up dumpsters, putting in playgrounds when we can't do it on our own parks and our own grounds.
well, yes, but we should be, and we should actually have submitted probably, I've been looking at recreation ones all day tonight, and we should have been submitting about 60, 100 of these over the past 3 years, and we haven't, I don't submitted like one. So all our parks should be all redone by now, I think, anyway, but let's work on that for this year and get some in there. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
We
and I
only
agree.
do
but
what
I
we have
can't do it.
applications for.
Oh.
Derek,
Well,
point,
somebody else
Yes.
has to submit them. I can't submit them and Joe can't submit them.
Why?
Why not?
we can submit them.
I submit historic stuff.
No, because you're a town employee, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing as having, like with people on the committee. You remember that old selectman that got booted was trying to say that having a park commissioner on as an at-large position on this board was a conflict of interest. You don't stand to make any more money because we built a park. You don't have anything personally to gain because we build a park, you know what I mean? Or build a playground or anything like that.
You're not selling park equipment.
Exactly. You're not making anything. You don't stand personal gain because we approved a project that's going to utilize town funds. So there's none of these are a conflict of interest.
Okay.
Yep. So as
They're
far as
coming.
that. Assess this parcel Beach
This is a second appraisal, I guess, on the Beach Street property.
Now that one
It's fairly new.
just came in, yeah, so we'll have to,
But we don't need to vote on these, right?
well, we pay it out of administrative funds.
Right.
This one, since it wasn't already taken care of, the other ones were past due, so they just kind of threw them through.
Yeah.
It wouldn't hurt to actually just vote for payment on this. We owe the money anyways. We approved, actually, no, we don't. We don't have to vote on it because we approved payment for it.
Yeah, we made a blanket motion, right? To
Yep.
approve
Up
appraisals.
to, so we don't have to vote to pay that.
All right, so then FYI.
Yep, very good.
Thank you.
250. All right, so as far as the general discussions go, I think that's about covering it. I think that we have a lot of information to get over those two different projects. David's project for the connection to the town forest and whatnot, and then the neighborhoods project with Copley Gardens. And just see where they go from here. Either way, both of them will be resubmitting streamlined and itemized applications for us to review. I'll reach out to Doug about the 85K. And then also we want to find out about the what's admissible, what's not. So anybody, you got anything else to bring up? It's getting kind of late.
Just one really quick thing about the Tramp House. We're ready to go, but it was discussed tonight at the historic meeting that due to rising costs of wood, that we may want to push it to next spring.
No, get it going.
Okay, you guys will approve more money. We might need it.
Lumber suppliers have already re-upped their supply. It should be dropping down soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
we do have the contractor lined up and ready to go. It's just, the lumber prices.
That's great.
And if that's a necessity, we go back to it.
Okay.
The good thing is if you start now, you'd probably know by end of October if you needed more money.
Yeah.
True.
Very true.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, so entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Motion to adjourn, please.
Second,
Second.
That's you, Joe. Yeah.
Joe, all right. Derek?
All right, Peter.
Yes.
Aye, Tom Reagan.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Joe Reese.
Hi, John.
Hi, Peter.
All right.
Steve O'Donnell.
That
a
is
long
unanimous.
Yeah.
Meeting adjourned, 9:56.
All right.
Attaboy, gentlemen.
Good night,
Aye,
everybody.
Be in
gentlemen.
touch.
Yeah, bye.
Have a good night.
Have a good one.
Bye.
I'll leave.